Welcome back. I'm thrilled to dive into another explainer brought to you by Forge College. So last time, we were totally sweating the details, right? Stressing over literal milliseconds in our lesson on why benchmarking matters for Solana apps. But today, today we're kind of kicking back. We're grabbing our technical pens and drafting some absolutely pristine Ethereum smart contract blueprints. We're continuing our journey through advanced ERC-721 development, specifically focusing on implementing custom functions and inheritance.
Standard NFTs, the ones where you just mint a token and maybe transfer it. Those are great for basic projects. But let's be real, we live in a highly complex Web3 world now. What if you want a super sophisticated burn-to-upgrade gaming mechanic? Or, say, a VIP-only presale mint? We really need to ask how developers can add these complex custom rules to standard NFT contracts without completely breaking the underlying mechanics that keep everything secure.
So here's the master schematic we're drafting today. We'll start by going beyond basic NFT contracts. Then we'll cover separating policy from storage, creating safe extension points, getting hook overrides done right, looking at some real-world custom blueprints, and finally, wrapping up and next steps.
All right, Section 1. Beyond basic NFT contracts. The limits of standard minting.
At the simplest level, minting just creates ownership and spits out a transfer event. But honestly, that's rarely enough for modern applications. Real-world systems require some pretty advanced rules. You might need authorized minters, an absolutely strict capped token supply, specific time-gated mint windows, or even complex off-chain allow lists and linked on-chain identity checks. Every single one of these mechanics directly changes the token lifecycle. You can't just slap these into a basic mint function without creating a chaotic, unreadable mess of code. It's a total nightmare to maintain.
So how do we actually add these mechanics cleanly? Well, we use inheritance. Think of inheritance exactly like laying transparent blueprint modules over a base foundation. You've got your solid, unchangeable base layer at the bottom, and you just snap on these transparent sheets or mix-ins right over it. This lets you add totally new features without physically altering the fundamental floor plan beneath it.
Moving into Section 2. Separating policy from storage. This is literally the golden rule of architecture.
Look, there absolutely must be a clear division of labor here. On one side, you have your base ERC-721 contract acting as your storage. It holds the core data layout. And on the other side, that's your policy contract. This is where the rules live. You must keep low-level storage in your base contract, while the logic for who can mint, when they can mint, and under what conditions lives entirely in a separate policy layer.
Separating responsibilities is what actually protects your project. Core token storage stays right there in the base contract, so your data layout remains perfectly stable for future upgrades. Access control, that goes into a policy contract, meaning you can literally swap out the rules later without destroying your core data and ruining your entire weekend. And feature hooks go into mix-ins, allowing you to compose behaviors safely. It's just a brilliant, elegant approach to modular engineering.
Which brings us to Section 3, creating safe extension points, wiring the modular junctions.
We do this modular wiring by creating what are called extension points. In Solidity, an extension point is typically an internal virtual function. Think of it like a mechanical snap-on wiring junction drawn right into your schematic. By making a function virtual, you are intentionally leaving a socket wide open for downstream contracts to plug into and inject their own custom checks or bookkeeping. So how does this actually work in practice? Let's take a function like canMint. By exposing this hook, your policy mixin plugs right in and does all the heavy lifting of validation, checking the allow list, verifying the time window, leaving the base contract to simply execute the raw state mutation. Validation happens up top, state changes happen down below. It's that simple.
Section 4. Hook overrides done right. Navigating the tripwires.
If extension points are the sockets, hooks are the tripwires during the token lifecycle. Think of functions like before token transfer. When overriding them, always follow this defensive sequence. First, run your custom checks. For example, making sure a stake token can't be transferred out. Second, strictly compose with the parent by calling super. And third, absolutely avoid heavy storage writes on these hot paths. And by hot paths, I mean functions that execute constantly. Because if you don't, they will bleed your user's gas dry. Literally. Let's quickly define that second step, composition via super. When you call super, you're calling the parent contract's version of that specific function. This ensures that your new modular snap-on doesn't accidentally bypass the critical, battle-tested safety checks already built into the base ERC-721 chassis. It's basically your ultimate safety net. Never skip it.
Furthermore, let's talk about access for a second. Instead of lazily scattering require statements all over your contract like confetti, use explicit modifiers. Modifiers like only minter act as VIP bouncers, enforcing your rules right at the door of the function. It makes your code incredibly clean, easy to read, and honestly, way simpler to audit.
All right, Section 5, Real-World Custom Blueprints, putting the schematics to work. Theory is great and all, but let's see how developers apply these exact modular patterns to build real-world, bulletproof applications. Whether you're building a gated presale for an artist, a complex burn-to-upgrade video game mechanic, or even a soul-bound identity drop that can't ever be transferred, these all rely on exactly what we've been discussing today, separating policy from core logic. Let's look a little closer at two of these.
Take a burn-to-upgrade flow, for example. The timing here is absolutely critical. You must ensure the upgrade hook executes after the burn is completely finalized. If you do it before, a clever hacker might observe a transient state and exploit it to double spend, somehow getting the upgrade while keeping the original token. No way do we want that. Structure your overrides defensively.
And for a gated mint, it beautifully demonstrates the power of our transparent blueprints. When the VIP presale ends and the public mint begins, you simply swap or update the policy layer to remove the restriction. The beauty is that your underlying ERC-721 base and all that crucial low-level storage data remains completely untouched and perfectly secure.
Finally, Section 6, wrapping up and next steps, finalizing the draft.
Look, if you want to build at a professional level, you've got to remember this golden rule of engineering. Keep state changes minimal and strictly encapsulated. Isolate your policy into separate layers so it can be cleanly modified, and always write explicit overrides that call super to maintain foundational security. Hit the nail on the head right there.
Now that we have our architectural patterns locked down and our modular junctions wired up correctly, where do we go next? Well, in our next lesson, we're going to take these exact modular blueprints and optimize them for extreme gas efficiency and tight storage packing. Because, building it right is step 1. Making it cheap to run on mainnet, that's step 2.
So I'll leave you with this question to ponder. How will you modularize your next smart contract to ensure the policy is cleanly separated from the storage? Challenge yourself to think in layers. I hope this explainer helped clarify the mechanics of inheritance and custom functions. Be sure to visit forge.college to learn more about this and check out all the other incredible Web3 topics we have available. Until next time, keep your code clean and happy building.